Hi, this is Laura Slusher from Indiana LTAp, here today to talk to you about the traffic counters in our loan program, how to use them, install them, and care for them. The first thing you want to do when you get your traffic counters is to go ahead and charge them. Each one will come with a charging cord. You'll see this end corresponds to the holes on the counter. It's very important whenever you're using the traffic counters and charging them, whenever you're plugging them into the charging cable, to always plug them into the counter first, because anytime there is power on these tines and you touch it to the counter, it will erase all the data on the traffic counter, and you don't want to do that. So plug it into the counter first, then plug it into the wall. How you do that is you line up these tines with the corresponding holes, insert it gently and straight until it stops. Then you can plug it in to your power source and your data is safe. When you do plug it in, you will see a red light for when it needs to be charged. Once it turns green, you know that it's fully charged. This is our NC300 traffic counter. You may also get our NC350 traffic counters, which have a blue window here with some other lights. We'll tell you about those lights a little bit later. Once you download the software HDM that LTAp has provided for you, you're going to want to program the counters with the software. So open up the HDM software, and this is what you'll see. You're going to come to Device, Program Study, and then this will be the pop-up window. First, you need to select which counter you have. Most of LTAPs are NC300s or 350s. We do have a couple NC200s, so select which one you have. They're written on the counter. If you have a 350, it goes under 300, so those are programmed the same. So my counter today is an NC300, so I make that selection. I'm going to select my start day and time. Now sometimes the software puts the month before the day before the month. So you'll see it written that way. Don't get confused. That does happen though. So you pick your start day. We're going to go ahead and start it this afternoon at, let's put it at 3 o'clock. And then you set the duration. You don't set the end day that's shown here. You just set the duration. Let's say I want to do a 3-day study, or let's say I want to pick them up on Monday at 7 a.m. I'll select 3 days and 16 hours. You just play around with this until you get the date and time that you want. So if we wanted 7 a.m. and it showed 6 a.m., just add an hour. Leave the minute 0. Your binning period you want to be 60 because that's all you need for ADT. Now, when you're selecting your start time, you want to allow enough time to get to the site, to install the counters, and make sure they're in place at least 30 minutes before the study is supposed to begin. So if my study is set to start at 3 p.m. today, I need to make sure my counters are in place by 2:30. This allows the counters time to adjust to the magnetic fields surrounding its location. So I have my start day and time, and it's a good time also to note those so you know when to pick those up. Then you can come in here and add your information. This is helpful for the report, if your report's going to be saved or published and used in the future. So this one is going to be Main Street eastbound. Make sure you put a direction so you know which lane the counter is in. Then you set the speed limit. This is for your data. The speed limit out there is 40, and then you can add your initials here if you like. Once that is done, you'll come up here to program. It's going to tell you to connect the counter. So go ahead and do that, then hit OK. It's going to run down through here and program it. and then it'll tell you to disconnect. If it was programmed correctly, this is the message that you'll get: to disconnect the cable from the device now. You hit OK and make sure and disconnect it. It doesn't matter in which order you do it. If you get an error message, then for some reason the counter is not going to run. It will tell you in big bold letters, the study will not run. In that case, you may need to check your battery percentage, which is shown down here. For now, we're at 100%. And then you may need to check your parameters. If you had 15 or 5 minutes or something like that here, that will use a lot of battery and a lot of data. That's why we like to keep that at 60. So then you can, this information is saved. You can go ahead and hook up your next counter. We're also going to do the westbound lanes. We're counting each direction. So I just come in here and change the direction. Then I hit all the other information, the start time and the end time is saved, so that stays in there. I'll hit program again. I'll hook, connect the counter, say OK. It's going to run through and program it again, or program my second counter. Go ahead and hit OK, and then close. As soon as you take the counter off, you're going to need to label the counter for the location and direction so you know where to install it when we get out into the road. I like to use masking tape because it's easy to put on and take off. Please don't write directly on the counters because it won't stay on. So put your tape on, label it with your road name and direction. So we're going, this one was Main Street eastbound. Then we need to cover up the ports with electrical tape so they don't get debris in there. So just put a short piece of tape to cover all the holes, press it down, your counter is ready to go out into the road. First, there's a few things you're going to need to put the traffic counters in the road. You're going to need a cordless hammer drill. You're going to need a drill bit. We use 5/32 by 4.5 Tapcons. You're going to need a nut driver. You're also going to need a Tapcon screw with a washer. This Tapcon screw needs to be at least 2 inches long. Don't use anything shorter or it's going to pull the traffic counters up. Where to place the traffic counters in the road is important as well. We want to get away from a lot of driveways or intersections. A desolate part of the road is perfect if you have that. You're going to want to look at the road and put this in the middle of the wheel path. Now, before you place these down, make sure you're placing these in the correct direction. You have arrows on the counters showing the direction of traffic. You have arrows on the protective mat. Make sure both of the arrows are pointing in the same direction, the direction of travel for that lane. The counter fits inside the mat snugly. Make sure we still have the tape over the holes, connection holes. So we're in the middle of the lane with our traffic counters with the arrows pointing in the direction of travel. We're going to want to secure it at each of the 4 corners with our bits. So you're going to want to place either your foot or your knee or your hand, something over to hold the mat in place while you drill. Now you're going to want to put the screw in just as a placeholder in case the mat moves, but still keep your hand on the mat. Now if you hit a piece of aggregate or something like that and you can't get down into one of the holes, you can use the other hole on that corner. Now we'll switch out the drill bit for the nut driver. Now before you go, we're going to want to pull up on each end and make sure that it's snug. If it's not snug, add some more screws. Now that we set our first traffic counter, we're going to want to set one in the other lane. And while it may be tempting, especially on low volume roads, just to walk over here and set it, we need to make sure we have proper traffic control set up before we do our traffic installation, since we are in the roadway. Since it's short duration work, I can either use my vehicle or I can use a flagger depending on traffic and depending on my agency's policies. We're also going to want to make sure we stagger these counters and get this one a little bit further away from that one. At least 30 or 40 feet should be fine. In the middle of the roadway, making sure my arrows are pointed this way, and I'm ready to secure this again with my drill. Okay, now that I have the counters back from the field and our studies are done, I need to download the data. The first thing I need to do is, after I open my HDM software, is come under Catalog, create a new catalog. Then a pop-up window appears. Then I can save it as the name of my road. Now each counter is going to be put under this file, so you can just name it generically. You don't have to put the direction. And then hit open. It'll create that new catalog, and that gives me somewhere to save the data. Okay, so then it appears here on the left. I make sure that catalog is highlighted. Then I come up to Device, Read Study. And again, this pop-up window will appear. Again, we select the counter we have. We're using an NC300 today. And just a reminder, the 350, for that one, you still select the NC300. Then you select Read. It's going to prompt you to plug the counter in. So once you get that done, hit OK. It will read through the study. So once our data is read from our first counter, we will unhook that first counter, go ahead and hook the second one in, then hit Read again. It'll go and do this for all of your counters. And then when you're done, you can hit Close. To view the data, so I highlight the catalog I created, and for our purposes today, we're going to show you some data from a separate count. So I highlight this catalog here, and it shows me the counts that I have under there. If I double click on the first one, it will pull up the data for that counter. Go ahead and maximize the screen here. The report that I want is under Reports up at the top, and then it's the Summary Report. The Summary Report is going to give me the ADT, this last sentence here. It's going to give me the 85th percentile in this speed in this section, and then the percent trucks in this section here. So for this street, for eastbound, my data is there, so I'll note that down. I can print it, I can save it. Then I'll come to the westbound location, double click on that. Again, go to my summary report. And the data is here in this report as well. There's some other different reports that you can look at if you're interested. You know, play around with the data and see what the different reports show. But that's it.